Hey everybody, this is Zach from World of Game Design coming to you with another RPG review. This time we are going to be talking about Brian Colin and Ross Brandt's Grimm book that just released this week, and I got my special Gamefound foil edition cover in, and so I thought, you know what, let's make a video, let's talk about this little gem and see what we think. So first off, this book is taking advantage of Mork Borg's third-party license and is converting that book completely into a brutal sci-fi horror RPG that has kind of a punk aesthetic. This is a really true to Mork Borg conversion. In fact, you are going to feel like you already own this book in some ways, because it is almost identical in layout to what you can expect in the Mork Borg book. This book has 122 pages. Mork Borg has 96, and basically what you're getting here that you don't get in Mork Borg is some extra tables and some really cool stuff that we're going to talk about later, but by and large, this book has the same general content as Mork Borg does. So the thing that this book does is it introduces the idea that the universe has been infected with a parasite or a host of parasites called the Grimm. And these Grimm were breathed into the world by these giant worms called the Six, or they, which is very reminiscent of he and she in Mork Borg. It's still apocalyptic. That's a thing that you should take note. This is an apocalyptic sci-fi RPG, which I kind of dig. There's not a lot of that out there, where the entire universe is on the brink of complete collapse under the weight of the parasitic they. One thing, however, that makes this really cool and that sets it apart is that Grimm goes ahead and gives your party an out. It has something called the Gate of Infinite Stars as part of its presentation. And the Gate of Infinite Stars is this portal that allows potentially those who activate it to transport themselves into another universe and escape the clutches of the Grimm and the worms. However, if you turn on the portal and the Grimm gets there and accesses it themselves, well, you've basically given them a gate to a dimension as well, and they're gonna go infect another universe. So even though we are giving the party a hope for survival, we're also amping up the stakes right along with it. And I like that, because I think Mork Borg, it's hard to justify long-term campaigns and things like that in that world when the world is going to end. At least that's how it's presented, and everyone is kind of resigned to that fate. In this book, there's a tiny smidgen of hope, and I think that's a really good addition. Another thing that I really like is the character creation section of this book. That was my one complaint with the Mork Borg book, is that character creation has you bouncing all over the place to build your character, and it's not super intuitive the first time through. I think it's really simple once you know what you're doing, but right out the gate it's difficult. This book figures that out. Hindsight being 2020 and learning from Mork Borg, I think that they addressed that really well, and the character creation in this is on point. Something else that I like about this book is it's really wild and crazy, and obviously there's this Grimm punk-infused idea, but there's also this hellscape, hellmaw on the side of the galaxy, and that's where there are demons and all sorts of crazy creatures like that. So even though we have a general premise of types of creatures that you're going to be running into all the time with the Grimm and the worms, there's also this great idea that I really enjoy in my sci-fi, which is these demon spawn running around. There are clear options in here for what type of healing is available, and there are some, items that you can use to choose your character. I understand the Morgborg is really trying to avoid the idea of healing and that death is almost an inevitability, but I think that this giving options for the game master to provide the party with healing actually can extend the horror a little bit. If you can give the party that D4 healing tonic, halfway through the adventure, it allows them to progress and allows them to experience more horrors, and maybe they're probably still going to die, but at least they get to continue that much further into the story. So I really like that there's some well-presented healing options in here for items. A couple things that have been added is the idea that you can become infected with parasites, and there's several different varieties, and those varieties influence your character. They give you these pleasures or these pain moments that I think are cool, these great flavor tables to roll on. And eventually, obviously, the idea is that if you become infected and you can't fight it off, you're going to turn into a Grimm and not be a playable character anymore. But the idea that you are struggling with this infection potentially long term, I think is really cool and makes this a really unique feel. Additionally, there are a ton of what they call adventure sparks in the back of this book, which are just basically quest hooks, quest plot ideas. I think that's great. As a new dungeon master that has never ran Vast Grimm before and is trying to figure out what types of stories to tell, I think that does a really good job of giving you a scope for what can go on. And then finally, in a thing that's similar to Morgborg again, but I really like, is the adventure in the back of the book. The adventure has you kind of crawling through a ship, trying to get an artifact that will apply to the Gate of Infinite Stars. I think that's great as a starter adventure because it introduces us to the idea of the Gate. It has plenty of enemies, different types of enemies for you to encounter. I think this is a really great starter adventure. I highly recommend this book if you are into sci-fi horror, especially if you like body horror, weird horror, things like that. I think you can't go wrong. Now, speaking of starter adventures, I also picked up several zines that are for Vast Grimm, and some of these I picked up through Free RPG Day and then a couple at Gen Con, so I'm not sure if you can get all of these still, but I thought I might rattle off just some cool notes on these. A couple of these are quick starts, so these are great little easy ways to get into the game without buying the full book. This one, Vast Grimm, I Want Your Skulls, is a great little hex crawl asteroid hopper, and it introduces a elite version of the Grimm infected creatures that I think is really cool, and I won't spoil any more than that, but holy crap, I thought that was a great addition. Then we have the free RPG version one, which is called Into the Wormhole. This book is really great as well. It's a little bit shorter of an adventure. You basically are crawling into a single asteroid into the body of a creature and experiencing what killed it and what still remains. Both this book and the one previous also come with pre-gens in the back and a short condensed version of the rules. So everything you need to kind of get your feet wet into Vast Grimm is in them. I like them both. I think they're both great. Last but not least, I also picked up Into the Asteroid. And Into the Asteroid is weird. And that's probably a good thing for this. But as soon as I read the premise, I'm like, of course, this is one of the early books for this system, because why wouldn't you make it weirder? Into the Asteroid is a way to link Vast Grimm to the world of Morgborg via the Hellmaw and the Abyss and some creatures that have potentially escaped it. So this isn't going to be for everyone. If you want to keep your sci-fi and your dark fantasy separate, you probably don't need this one, but I think it's really great. It's really interesting, and I am all about it. Anyhow, that's going to be our review for Vast Grimm and a couple of the zines that are already available for it. I'm a big fan. Brian's a good friend of mine. I was super excited to get this book. I'm going to highly recommend that you visit the Vast Grimm website, Infinite Black, as well, to pick up your copy. Head to your local gaming store and ask them if they can order it in. You know, Morkborg is great. It's awesome. I love running it. I like writing for it, but I also dig sci-fi, and I think that Vast Grimm manages to do some really unique things in the sci-fi genre. It's not just a knockoff. It's not just a quick cash grab. It has things it wants to show you, new ideas that it wants to tell, and I can't recommend it enough. This is an awesome book. Go check it out. I'm going to go ahead and leave a few links to all of this down in the details section of the video. If you like this video, leave us a comment, give us a follow, and I guess in a couple weeks we'll probably do another one of these reviews. Until then, we'll see you next time.